welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Fellas. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to all things The Fellas. And remember to hit that notification bell. This week, we're talking about the Spanish Grand Prix. I think it was an interesting race. Not the procession that we saw last week, but interesting nonetheless. Some events. Ray, what are your thoughts on the race?
I think initially for me, it started out like it's going to be, I say in the front, it was going to be like a typical race. And even though some of the midfield guys were doing some back and forth, but after what happened towards the end of the race, brought some drama and spice to the race for me.
Simon?
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks have been kind of stale, but yet interesting at the same time. I really can't wait to some other tracks and some other events that's coming up. But yeah, interesting race. Little boring, but yet interesting, especially in this one. At the last 12 laps and the incidents, which we'll talk about, made the race a little bit more exciting. Right?
Yeah. Getting right into it. I mean, at the beginning of the race, it's Oscar rockets away and Lando gets mobbed. Like, Oscar got a great start. And a lot of races have been won by getting that start right and getting into that clean air. But Lando, wow. Simon, what talk about it? Tell me.
Well, I'm going to start a little differently with Oscar and then lead into Lando a little bit. I think, I don't know if you guys remember a couple of episodes back, I said by the sixth race or by the sixth race, Oscar was going to take the lead in points. And I think he did that by the fifth race.
Yeah.
And I do not believe he is going to give it up.
Yeah.
Something beyond his control at this point will be the only thing that will give it up. He has proven right now that he's, especially on qualifying for this race, he was a good 0.25 seconds ahead of his teammate in qualifying. He's just masterclassing this season, in my opinion, after last season coming in, second fiddle to Lando. Yeah. Now getting to Lando, Lando to me is still having little hiccups here and there when it comes to Max. Max is still, controlling him, especially on the first turns, on restarts. He's not learning from his mistakes. So I believe Lando still has some issues he needs to work out when it comes to his best friend.
Right.
Well, yes, Oscar stamped the weekend, started out qualifying. And yes, he took off in the beginning of the race. Right. And yes, he wants to be the guy this year. He wants to be that guy. And he's going to do everything that he could do because you keep mentioning, his manager, Mark Webber. Right. And I think you've done it in the past, Ralph, to say that, he's been through this type of situation before. So he knows what to point to Oscar to say, hey, this is what you watch out for these pitfalls. Yes. But Lando got mobbed. In the US, we say jumped off of the at the beginning of the race because I don't know if his clutch didn't engage right or what, but was it Verstappen and Russell was all over his ass before he got out before the first corner, the second corner, right? So Max, took a spot from him, right? And then, Russell had to fall in, but still, I don't know, what. I guess the consistency with Lando, right?
Right.
And I think that's what Oscar is help bubble up to the top right now, right? Because Oscar seems to be, Mr. Calm, cool, and collective, right? Even though he's raging on the inside. But, he's showing that, Lando he's almost like a sine wave. Some days he's up and some days below the equilibrium point. Right. So, that it's been showing up right. And again, in his defense, I think he's looking at the long game with Max. Instead of going and crashing out in the corner to push Max off, he's saying that I got enough car that I can come back and take you.
Who? Meaning Lando?
Lando, yes.
Yeah, I think it was Nico Rosberg that made a comment like that I saw where he said, that Lando is playing the long game there. And you know what? Yeah, he probably is, right? Because he did end up coming in second, right?
Yeah.
He didn't get his car damaged or anything like that. But I agree with Simon. I've said it before as well that Max has Lando wrapped up. So Lando doesn't have – Max is not afraid of him, and Max knows exactly what to do with him to get him to jump out of the way. And Max also has learned he can't do that with Oscar. He got him once. When he snuck up the inside and got him. And Oscar, we're all sure, has learned from that. But yeah, I think the problem with Lando is Lando. You know, it's in his head, you know, and that's what makes the difference of a world champion is that they are able to sort their heads out, you know, and be strong. But okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Can I just add to that a little bit? I think from what I'm seeing, you know, emotionally, and this race proved it. Emotionally, Max is still Max from when he started, right? He's still Max. And Lando is emotional too. And I think I'm not saying that Oscar is a better driver than Max or Lando, but he's able to control his emotions to where he's getting the best consistency, like you said, Ray, every weekend. Every weekend. It's a masterclass, in my opinion. Right?
Right. And to piggyback on that, it's interesting too, and I know we'll get into it later. Yes, Max has control of his emotions, but you do see and hear some outbursts that you would think, I guess, for a lesser driver or a lesser person that really doesn't have that control of their mind, that would have killed their race. But he's able to gather himself back up and get his head right back into it again. You know, but we have seen what I would call, I guess, kinks in the armor. But the problem is just like little dents. It's not cracks in Max. You know, little dents, and then he just keeps going with it. So I agree. So having said that, then, you know, this one is not in one sense it's positive, it's good, and in the other sense it's a little bit of sadness there. The Italian horse is still in limp mode. So, Lewis, before I even touch Lewis, that title is for Lewis, we have to give it to Charles. I don't know. I almost thought Lewis was in another team to how that Charles' Ferrari was running compared to Lewis's car. And I still don't understand it. But anyway, so hats off to Charles. He drove a great race to finish P3. But what's going on with Lewis? Simon?
I know for a fact Charles had a different tire strategy going into the race because they couldn't use any more tires, and he had 2 new sets of mediums that he could use. And I know Lewis didn't have that. I'm not sure if Lewis used up his tires during qualifying just to make it to 5th in qualifying. But I do know that Charles had 2 new sets, and I think Lewis only had 1. I do know that. So Charles did race a good race, and I think that's why Ferrari told Lewis to let Charles buy, is because he just had more pace, had fresh tires. Because if you look, Charles on the last qualifying 3, Charles did not go back out for a second.
No, he didn't.
Second run. And I believe if he did, he probably would have qualified above Lewis in the start. So I believe that there's something there that the weekend just went awry for Italian, and I think the title is appropriate. Limp mode is because you still got power, but you just you just
can't use it all.
And for some reason, that leg that's hampered is on Lewis's thigh. Charles is still there, and you can see, Ferrari is still in the standings when it comes to the team standings. We'll look at that later, but as you can see, Ferrari is second right now because of it, right? It's beating Red Bull and beating Mercedes, right? So Ferrari has something there. They just need to work out whatever's happening in the back and behind the scenes. They need to work that out. They need to work it out now.
Right. Yeah, because even looking at that, well, we'll get into that when we get later on. But yeah, you're right. Ray, your thoughts?
So yeah, Shaw made the decision not to come off of Q3 because he wanted to keep tires. He wanted to have good tires because the temperature and the track was taking a toll on the tires, right? So that one happened there. However, Rosberg, I listened to Rosberg, Nico Rosberg, sorry, and he came up with a good point, and I went back and checked. Lewis's rear was very loose, right? There was one, I looked at one, he came through one turn, and sure enough, the ass was dancing around. And I think it was dancing around a little bit too much for his liking, right? For him to really capitalize on the car. And which makes sense, right? Because, you want to know, all right, you go to power and you expect the car to hook up and go forward, but yet it's hooking up and going sideways, right? So that you find that disconcerting. So I'm not sure, again, it comes back to how to set up the cars between him and Charles, right? And so I think the team eventually, they had to make that call that, even though Lewis didn't want to give it up, but the writing was on the wall, right? Because he was falling backwards, whereas, Charles could move forward, right? So it comes back to, again, what's going on with the setup of the cars. Why are these cars so finicky that it can only be set for one driver, not another, right? Why can't it be, why can't it be adjusted to suit multiple drivers? We see it, and I was going to broaden the scope. We see it with other drivers, right? Like new drivers that are coming to teams. They not only Lewis, but they're still having issues, adapting, except for Isaac Hadjar. I'll give it to you. And Antonelli, right? But getting back on my topic is just, what's going on with the setup of these cars that are causing it to be this way? Or like what I said before, is he so entrenched in a particular driving style that he's not willing to try and embrace something new?
Or, and that's what I was going to circle back to. I think maybe Simon had mentioned it last time, or you, Ray. But yeah, he's been racing for Mercedes for so long. So, whatever he has in his, let's say, his bag of tricks that he would normally use don't apparently work on this car. So he has to create a whole new bag of tricks. He has to learn the car and then do it. Charles already knows what works because he's been with the team for that long. So he's already developed his, and he can rock it away with it. But even maybe if they're sharing of info, maybe what works for Charles doesn't work for Lewis, because he may have to adapt his driving style in order to develop this. I don't know. That just a thought. Simon, anything?
Yeah, I think there's some muscle memory there that he can't tap into because it's a new team. Charles is 10 years younger than him at least, right? So with new drivers, new technology, there's things that you're going to have to learn that you've already, with Mercedes, I think he's already figured out without having to figure out. Now he's coming to Ferrari and having to figure out things that he has to figure out, right? So I think there's some nuances there that he's having to deal with. I'm just baffled at what happened after the safety car, right? When they put the softs on him, I thought they were a brand new set of softs, but they acted like they were worn. So I have no idea what happened because he was going backwards. If it wasn't for running out of laps, I forgot who was behind him at the time. They, Hulkenberg passed him, and whoever was behind him was going to pass him as well if there was one more lap. Right. Yeah. So you can tell from his post interview, Lewis is not happy, and he didn't want to say anything that was just going to make the matters worse. So he's kept his mouth shut and kept it moving. But something's going on there, man. And I don't know if it's a communication thing. I don't know if it's an Italian versus English thing. I don't know what's going on there. But there's some discomfort there and some awkwardness in the stables of the Italians.
So right, you came across they published a call over where Lewis said, why are we coming in so early? So it seemed like they were going against whatever tire strategy was discussed before the race, right? Because you should come up with a plan sheet. This is how we're going to run the race. Right. And if this change, I put I would want to think a couple of variables in there that we adjusted, because he did come across on the radio and said, why you called me in so early? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So,
I didn't really think it was early. Right. I just don't mean to cut you off. I think it was early because everybody else, in Lewis's mind, it was early, of course, but everybody else came in within 2 or 3 laps afterwards. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So was it really early?
Well, but the fact that he said it, it must have, like Ray was saying, it must be going against a plan they had.
Absolutely.
So that's probably why he chose those words. Like, why am I coming in so early?
And did we consider that he might have been in tire saving mode because he was looking for a long run as opposed to eating them up like our buddy Max did that went through those multiple pit stops.
Good point.
Right. So, he's trying to be more strategic in his approach. So if he knows going long on it, then you don't want to finish it off in the beginning. You want to keep it around so that, you can come back towards the end. Just
good point. Good point. Possible. Okay. So now we come to the safety car debacle, safety car came out because of Kimi, but then it seemed like a whole mad world of stuff just started happening after that. So I'm just going to lead in. Ray, take us in.
Yeah, well, we got to see Max. Max the Monster showed up, right? My man is just like, yo, dude, because first of all, yes, I think his team kind of fed this, right? Because he came in and they threw him on a set of hards while everybody else was not touching the hards, right? And he already knew that, to bring temperature in the hards, it's going to take a while, right? So one option could have been they could have left him out on his the current tire that he had, right? If they were going to go to the hard and let him see if he could push it, further. But I think they made the choice on that. That was their first faux pas, in my opinion. And then I don't know if you guys noticed that they almost was a pileup when the race restart came around because Oscar picked his point where he's going to start from, and nobody was expecting him to pick that point, right? So anyway, but that started it, right? But the thing was, then Max was already frustrated because he's on these hard tires. Everybody else is on a better tire than him and going around, right? And so I think he came around one of the turns onto the straight, and he's a skilled driver. His ass went. He caught the slide, came back, didn't miss a beat, but he gave Charles the opportunity, right, to come up on him. And Charles rolled up on him, and when Charles rolled up, Max was trying to squeeze Charles to the inside, and Matt punted his ass back to the left and say, I need some space, right? And he went around him, right? So that started escalating at the temper now, right? So after coming back around, what's it called?
George.
Russell came at him, right? So Russell dived on the inside. However, it seemed like Russell hit the curbing because the ass went on Russell. In car camera, you see Russell turn to correct the car. And that caused him to bump into Max, right? Push Max off track. Max rejoined in front of Russell. So his team stepped in again to assist Max by saying, hey, you need to, instead of waiting for us to get penalized, this is what I'm supposing, they say give the thing back to Russell because they're trying to play it safe, right? Because, nobody wanted to go argue the point that Russell moved the steering, so whatever. And so that further escalated Max, right? Because now Max was at, 100 plus in his temper, right? And he got pissed, right? And he rammed Russell, right? I got a problem with that, right? I think, again, the FIA came in, and it's because Max is their boy, 10 seconds. No, I agree with Rosberg. He should have been black flagged, and he should have been suspended from the next race. That's not acceptable. And I'll go further. And I saw an interview after where the reporter was trying to coax him in, and he basically said, yo, I did what I did. That's it. I don't give up about what everybody thinks. That's the facts, and I'm done. And that's my paraphrasing, because she also said, children look up to you. She's subtle. Women know how to work it, right? And children leave them a better impression. And he's like, he gave him the finger. Say, yo, it is what it is.
No, wait. Just to clarify, you mean the physical finger, or
no.
Clarify.
Yes.
Okay.
No, he did not do that on stream, but he just cut it off and said, let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Right. But I think that is dangerous, and that's a dangerous precedent to have. Okay. Yes, you're upset, but he purposely did not turn in, so he ran into George. Right. And that is not acceptable as somebody who stands out there. However, things may be changing in how people deal with people. But that was my take on that thing.
Simon?
Ray hit almost every point there. I think after the safety car, it was more or less a sprint race, right? With 9 laps to go, stuff like that. And it showed many things. It showed Ferrari, like we talked about, still in limp mode with Lewis. It also showed that, Oscar, again, was smart on when he picked his point to really and truly step on the gas. And I think Charles, he showed Max he's not scared of him either. He kind of moved to the left a little bit, but Max didn't move. Did you notice that? Max did not move. He said, "You're going to hit me," which he did.
That's what he did, right? Punting his ass back to the left and saying, "Get over there."
Yeah, said, I ain't moving. But yeah, I think being on the hard tires really hurt Max's race. And I don't understand then, if you only had hard tires left, why are you going a 3-stopper, right? Actually, that was his 4th stop, right? Because it was a safety car. So I take that back. But yeah, Max got a little emotional, like I mentioned before. And, now he's got 3 penalty points, 1 more penalty point. He has to miss a race. So he did get that, Ray. I don't know if you missed that point, but he did get 3 penalty points. But I hear you. I know Rosberg, to me, is I don't know if you guys watch the NFL at all, but the ex-Cowboys quarterback is a commentator there now. I can't remember his name for some reason. But he's one of the best commentators, right? He does a play-by-play because he played quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. And Rosberg is doing the same thing. His commentary is so spot on that, I thought just because of what he said about the black flag, they were going to give it to him. Right. He was like, it's cut and dry. Right. And so, for him to get 3 points out of 4, we'll see if he's going to mess up again. But it really puts Max in a precarious position now. He can't mess up anymore.
Yeah.
And he's still got 2/3 of the season to go. Right.
Yeah.
But this was him when he was battling Lewis 5-6 years ago, right? If he's not winning or dominating, the only time you saw happy Max was the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Soon as someone is on his butt, or soon as someone's giving him a challenge, every little thing is an issue, right? And I'm not trying to hate on Max. I'm just saying that he's got to realize he's a 3-time world champion. You don't have to. Your skill is good enough. Wow. Your skill is good enough. Anyway,
I agree. I see it. Yeah, that's the dents, part of the dents in that armor where you see it. You're right. All of them. Look at Fernando Alonso. How long it's been. He's a 2-time world champion. He hasn't won it. He's out there fighting, right? Trying to win. But you could see Lewis is going through his period as well, right? And now you could see that Max, if he's not winning, and I know that's the mantra of world champions and most of the, if he's not winning, he's not interested. Senna was the first one I've heard that said it, that he's a racing driver. He was a racing driver. He's designed to win, and he's not interested in coming in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. He's there to win. And that's what Max embodies. I know they all do, meaning Alonso and Lewis and Max, because they're world champions. But yeah, Max, I don't know. Yeah, Max, I know he doesn't care how he looks because of what you said he did with that reporter. But yeah, I don't know. It just makes him look bad, But I will say this, to flip it and to close it out, is to say that, you know what? For years, there been a certain segment of F1 fans that said it became too clinical. And I understand that, because too many rules, too many this, they're getting involved. It's a racing incident and you're giving them a 10-second or 5-second, whatever. Max seems to me more or less, he's like a racing driver from the 90s and the 80s, where they did. I watched Michael Schumacher once. Rubens, I forgot what team Rubens was running racing in. And Michael almost put him into the wall. And it was another one of those situations where it's like that Rubens said it over the radio. He should be black flagged for that. And you could see it. It was like they're coming down the straight at speed and he moved them over. Max seems to be of that ilk. He's.
So let me jump in when you're done.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying he seems to be of that. Like he's that kind of driver that would have been more suited. I don't want to say more suited from that time. Maybe we're not used to seeing it in this time.
But he is. Before you go, Rick, he is from that time because his dad has taught him everything he knows.
And his dad raced alongside Michael, right? Yeah. So his dad taught him right. So that's what today reminded me when I looked at it. I said, wait a minute, am I watching a race in the 90s? I was like, he just banged this guy's car. The only other person I saw that do that was Vettel when he did that to Lewis, and it was a mistake. Vettel apologized after, but he thought Lewis brake checked him or whatever, and he didn't. But anyway, go ahead, Ray.
Well, I think it's dangerous to use. Let me restart over. Okay, so if we're going to go NASCAR, rubbing is racing, then they have to redesign the cars so that you can't lock wheels. Kind of like what they did in for IndyCar, right? Because he used this car as a weapon, right? And that should not be acceptable, right? That should not be acceptable. He didn't camouflage it. He's like, oh, take this, and I'm gonna ram you with it. So they cannot give an inch on that because once it's out the gate, it will never be put back in the bottle.
But they didn't give an inch because he got the penalty points.
Yeah, but the penalty is not enough. They needed to send a message because he's their boy. That's why they gave him that little puny thing, as opposed to black flagging his butt and tell him that he's out of the race for the next go around. Right. So because I will say that what Charles did by punting his butt over, well, it's kind of racing in a way. But what Max did was not racing. It was blatant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He didn't want to put the effort in to put a little finesse in it so that there would be a gray line. He wanted to send a message that I'm pissed and I'm raging inside the car and I'm going to take my rage out on this dude. Right. And that needs to stop because he needs to go have some anger management stuff. He needs to be talking to somebody, to slow him down and say, hey, take a minute, pull over, take 5 minutes, and then get back in the race.
Go ahead, Simon.
So, yeah.
You can't take a person like that. You can't take that bull, Red Bull. You can't take that bull and put him in anger management because he won't race the same.
Yeah.
He won't.
Yeah.
He won't. He'll be I don't know who he'll be at this point, but because I don't want to insult any other drivers, but he's just not the same. What he has to realize is that, and I think with maturity it comes, right? Because I'm pretty sure everyone went through it at one point where you have to realize what's important and what's not important, right? That incident, and I believed he was right. I don't think he would have lost 10 seconds with Russell. I think they would have called it a racing incident,
right? Because
Russell wasn't in front of him when he had to move over and go into the lane to avoid the incident. Russell wasn't in front of him, so it wasn't like and I think that's why Max was so upset because he was like, I don't have to give it back because it was a racing incident in his mind, right? Russell wasn't in front of him. And don't quote me.
No, but it was past his front. So it was past his mirror. His front wheels was past his mirror, right? So it's again, for me, the crux of the whole thing was where they got the gray area is that Russell had to correct on the corner because he got upset. The car got upset by the curbing, causing him to hit Max sliding out, right? And Red Bull, in their defense, wasn't sure that the stewards were going to come down with it. So they were trying to circumvent that, right? And by say, give it back to him and then attack again. And that's what kind of, threw it off, right? In hindsight, the stewards didn't take it up. They took it as a racing incident. So maybe, I said the team on the Red Bull's pit wall were kind of off today, right? Because they've done it in the past where they've let him go and say, we'll eat gap the person, so we'll eat the penalty. You know what I'm saying? I've seen them do that with him already.
There was no gaps today, though.
Yeah. So so those are the other things that went on. But still, I know if there was Lewis that did that, oh man, there would be hell to pay. There would be hell to pay. He'll be banned for the rest of the year. Right? And they were like, well, we cannot condone this type of behavior because we are, a sport that children look up to, and we can't have that going out into the environment. That would be their justification. But because it's Max, we'll
I'll say this.
Agree with that.
You say you don't. You say you don't.
Lewis, I don't agree with it because Lewis wouldn't have done it. That's not the headspace Lewis is in right now.
Understood. Because he's not that. He knows better, and he knows what what is not capable. This guy acts like didn't come up with. Let me put it in some management terms. He did not come up with a lot of boundaries to know when, what not to cross in what situation. He may have been a free range child where he decided what he wanted to do. And that's kind of what popped up today, because that's dangerous.
I'll say it this way. I forgot the name of the mechanic. It was the brother that had the locks that used to be on the Red Bull squad. I know he retired. He's in a different role. He said it in an interview once. He said, yeah, Max will do whatever it takes to win. And I think that says it all.
Well, he almost took himself out the race with that.
Yeah, I know. But it backfired.
It was Tony Romo, by the way. Dallas quarterback was Tony Romo.
Oh, that you were talking, right. Because if Max had remained calm, he would have gotten points.
More points. He would have gotten more points.
More points, right? If he'd have remained calm, he would have finished right behind George, if anything, eaten that, but he would have had his head in the game for the long haul. So as a result, he hurt himself even more.
Hey, Ralph.
But, go ahead, Ray.
Before you go away, I just wanted to throw out one other point for that we're overlooking. The FIA has a problem. I'm blaming everybody today because they kept the safety car out too long, right? Because if you look at the picture, they had the crane, had the car up on hook and pulled it off, right? And the amount of time they took to say it before they said, hey, should let the lap cars through, they ate up 2 to 3 laps of kill dead time, right? Where they could have done it. So the FIA kind of added to all of that too, because they needed to, you want to be quick with what's going on, right? And the crane pulled it off to the side. Yes, nobody's going to get hurt. And they need to say, it's like my dude was in slow motion. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, dude, they need to step it up to say, hey, let the cars through. Because the cars were all the way on the back side of it. So even though and it's not as if the cars that were let go, right, that they sat around to make them come closer, was going to get caught immediately by the front runners, because when everybody goes back to pace, you go back to pace, right? And by the time, and I'm no pro,
Ray,
but
I think you're still having 2020 nightmares, man. What happened to Lewis Verstappen? It's okay, man.
No.
You gotta let it go, bro.
No. They screwed up the race too, because Lewis came over the radio and said, "What's going on with the car? Why is it taking so long?"
Yeah.
All right.
Well, closing that out. Moving into the race results, we see how Oscar.
Let's pull up the race results.
Let's pull up the race results. Hold on.
Because I believe right now Oscar is 10 points ahead. Oh, so he got 25 points.
Yep. Lando's 18. And we have Charles and 15 points in third. Yeah.
The disappointing one there is just Lewis Hamilton being 6th place when he really should have been fighting for 4th.
Yeah.
He had no tire under him. He had no tire.
Yeah, he just. Again, I don't know what happened. I don't know if they put old ones on there and told them they were new.
It was
something happened in that race.
It was
when I saw that Sauber go around him, Nico Hulkenberg, I was like, wow.
And Hadjar almost passed him.
Hadjar.
So to your point, Ray, if they did pull the safety car out 1 lap earlier, Lewis would have came in 7th.
Yeah. He probably would have, right. But still, they still need to move.
They have a problem.
But
let's give a shout out to Alonso scoring his first 2 points at his home race. So, which makes us might have to eat some words from last year about
Lance Stroll.
Right? Lance Stroll has scored all the points pretty much for Aston Martin.
Aston Martin, yes, that's right. So, yeah, he made me eat some words because I was like, okay, well, 16 points for Aston Martin and 14 of them are from Lance. So,
yep.
yeah.
But Hadjar, don't forget our boy Hadjar. He is the man. He's always up there. He's always in the points. You know, he's in the points more than not. So I give props to him for being a quote unquote rookie. He's, you know, he seems to be a consistent, really, and a really good driver. He's good in qualifying, and he's good in the race. So just imagine if he had a car that had some pace in it, where he would be.
Yep. And here we see it. Max threw away 9 points.
He doesn't care.
No, he doesn't care. I know, but he threw it away.
Yeah,
you know, that's what it was. He threw away 9 points there. But okay, let's take a look at the driver's standings. And we got, you know, we have Oscar Piastri. He's leading it out ahead of Lando.
I mean, from the rookie standpoint, Antonelli is, you know, really got a strong car underneath him, and he's really providing the support that Russell needs. But Hadjar, as you mentioned, Ray, is really doing well to compete with Esteban Ocon, and he's actually 1 point ahead of him, ahead of his teammate. So he's doing well for a rookie as well.
Yeah. I give it to them. You know, they are 3 rookies. I'll call it Hadjar, Antonelli, and
Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, that are standout drivers, right, in this field right now. You know, Lawson, I don't know if he's going to be sticking around, but you know, because anyway, I'll just leave it alone. It's you know, he still hasn't been able to come to grips with the car yet, I think.
Yeah.
So, but those 3 guys, they have they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
They're the leader on the leaderboard for the rookies.
Yeah.
Well, taking a look at this, Max Verstappen really took a hit this weekend in points. I mean, there's the biggest gap since the season started between McLaren, which is what, 29 points. So yeah, he's taking a hit. He needs to win a race, and the other 2 need to be pretty much disqualified for him to catch up now at this point. So, but George Russell and Charles are right there. I think Charles is probably going to pass George by the end of the year, in my opinion. I think Lewis might too. We'll just see. But they got to get their stuff together. There's something going on there that they got to figure it out.
Well, don't give up on Red Bull, right? Because they're a seasoned team. It's just that they were off in this race, right? You know, I'll come back around. They're off, but you know, and they have the raging driver in the car, and then they didn't want Yuki because Yuki got upset too much. What the heck would they? You know, anyway, we'll go back to that.
But hold on. But yeah, okay. Yuki got upset too much, but he's not getting the results that Max gets.
Well, yeah,
so that's
true, because true. However, it comes back to my quandary. How can they have these cars in such a way that it can't be tuned to suit a driver, right? To 2 drivers. It comes back. It's just like, how can that be, right? Because one would think that aerodynamics should be standard in a form, right? And then you should be able to do chassis changes to accommodate as a fine tuning of the car to bring it in for the driver, right? But again, I don't know. So that's my quandary with that stuff. That to see there, you know, because all the incumbents on these teams seem to be the ones that are excelling in the platforms that they're driving right now, right? And the new ones, regardless of how much history you have in the field of racing, seems to be the ones that are having an uphill battle. Sites, right? Also, so that's what I find. That's my quandary. Is like, how come it's so different that they can't wrap their head around it? Right?
Let's take a look at the constructor standings, team standings. So here we have it. McLaren. Well, we know where they are.
Yeah, Zach's happy.
Yep, Zach's happy. Zach's happy if they pull this off. Oh, and just to say it what we said before, because it applies here too. All it takes is an engine failure. Right, DNF something, and it'll start to, flip it around, flip it back around again. Maybe if you have 1 or 2 of those, like if you're, I don't want to say names or put anything on, whatever, but if you're leading and have that, it can flip it around again. But anyway, yeah, Zach should be happy. And you got Ferrari in second place. So you're saying, Simon, you think Are you thinking that Mercedes might pass Ferrari for second?
No, I'm thinking Ferrari should be able to hold on a second if they continue to consistently not win races. But even though they're not winning races, they've been pretty consistent, right? Lewis and Leclerc are finishing in the points and in strong points. They're getting really good points. So it's putting them in a great position from the team standing standpoint, the constructors money, right? I'm right now, that's probably the saving grace and why Ferrari is probably in a somewhat good mood, because they know that they have an opportunity to come in second place and win money for next year, right?
Right.
But they got to figure out, what the Achilles heel is right now in Lewis's car, because Lewis should have been fourth, at least third on this race by now, in my opinion, right? Just based on everything that happened and based on Charles's results, right? So I think they should be able to hold on. Antonelli's still a rookie. I mean, if he's by the second third of the season, if he's improving even more, then Mercedes will take over Ferrari if Ferrari doesn't fix the issues. Yep,
with Lewis's car. Ray, any points?
No, I just said don't count out Red Bull. Because they are, as I said, a seasoned team. They are off this weekend, but they'll be there. Even though Yuki's still struggling with the car, they'll still be popping up there, right? Because just don't keep your eye off it, because Ferrari has not struck me as being consistent in the past. So, yes, they're there and their guys are finishing up. So hopefully they stay that way, right? But don't count out Red Bull yet, because they're scheming on something. They're coming. They're coming back for sure.
All right. Well, having said that, the next race is 2 weeks in Canada. Any predictions, Simon?
Predictions, yes. Man, Oscar is the man right now. I'm not going to bet against him for a while. So every time you come to me for predictions, Oscar's going to be number one.
Okay.
It depends on number 2, 3, and 4, and 5 at this point. So I'm going to go with Lando. I think Lando is still hungry. He's just got to fix his mistakes, and we'll see what Max does now that he's got these penalties. Now that he's angry, let's see if he uses that to help Booster and throwing some stuff around in the paddock and making the guys fix Yuki's car as well. So Oscar, Lando, and
Max.
Ray? It's most likely it's going to be Oscar, but it could be Lando, right? Because again, he comes on and he comes off, right? But it's going to be McLaren 1, 2, and Max number 3. That's where I put it, because when I look at Mercedes and Ferrari, I still think they don't have the pace, right? So, but they hang around enough to pick up. If one of those guys fumble, they'll go to they'll step in for sure. So, but I think the challenger is going to be between those 3 guys, Max, Lando, and Oscar over there, there. And I'm kind of leaning. I don't know. Something said Lando might show up in Canada. I'm getting that feeling. So, but it doesn't mean that he's going to end the race, but win the race. But he'll be, on front.
Okay.
I think he'll qualify. I'll qualify Oscar. I think so.
No, I think it's going to be just like what Simon said. It's going to be Oscar, Lando, Max. Although Charles was a pleasant surprise this race, I'm gonna put my money back on Max again for third. So okay. Well, having said that, we'll see you all in 2 weeks for the Grand Prix of Montreal. As always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Take care, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.